Right now, a shocking arrest in the Gilgo Beach murders.
Rex Sherman is a demon that walks among us.
Unraveling years of secrets and new questions about other potential victims and killers.
We believe that there are multiple killers.
Evacuations across an American city after a freight train derails, forcing concerns about another East Palestine disaster. Putin unleashes new fury as his key bridge to Crimea is hit again. Who he's blaming, the White House responds in just minutes. Does America want a third-party candidate in the White House? The group gaining new momentum. Are they a legitimate threat or an intentional distraction? Plus, a mystery on an Alabama freeway.
We're sure that she called 911 from the interstate, and we're sure that a few minutes later, when the police arrived, she was not there.
A woman turns up after missing for 48 hours. Was she kidnapped or something else going on? Good afternoon. It's Monday, July 17th. You're watching NewsNation Now. I'm Nick Smith, filling in for Nichole Berlie. We begin today with a critical attack in Russia's war on Ukraine. The Kerch Bridge, built by Russia to connect annexed Crimea, has been damaged by 2 sea drones. The explosion killed 2 people and brought traffic to a standstill for hours. Ukraine was originally reluctant to take responsibility for the attack, but has since acknowledged its role in the blast. Vladimir Putin is promising to respond, and we're expecting to hear from John Kirby in just moments. This is the second time in less than a year that the bridge has been damaged. The crucial supply chain route is also an important symbol of Russia's claim on Crimea, with Russian President Vladimir Putin himself being the first to cross it when it opened in 2018. Joining me now is Leland Vittert, moderator of The Hill and host of On Balance. Leland, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. This is a big development that Ukraine actually took responsibility for their role in damaging that bridge.
Ukraine is certainly trying to flex its muscle and take the fight to Vladimir Putin, and we've seen sort of an increasingly bold Ukraine over, say, the past 6 months or so. They have their counteroffensive going on that's not going particularly well for Ukraine, but still Vladimir Putin very much is on defense. And this, I think, has much more symbolic meaning than it does necessarily military meaning. They'll be able to repair the bridge they did the last time. But this is trying to strike both a little bit of fear in Russians in Crimea that Ukraine can strike and Ukraine can cut you off. And number two, as you pointed out in the very beginning, this is symbolically very important to Vladimir Putin. This is his way of saying Crimea is part of Mother Russia. He wants to reconstitute what he sees as greater Mother Russia. This was a big part of that in 2018 when he built this bridge and drove across it again when it was damaged the last time in an attack. So if you're Vladimir Putin, this is just one more blow to your ego. And for a guy who rules by ego and by decree and by iron fist, only so many blows to your ego can you take before having to respond in a way that proves, to take this a little bit more broadly, strength. And I think as we look at the White House briefing room and John Kirby coming out, it's going to be interesting to see the messaging from the United States to Russia in terms of basically saying, this is how much you can do to respond. But here's the line that if you respond beyond that, it might bring a response from Washington and from NATO.
And Leland, that was my next question for you. What are you expecting Kirby to say? And do you expect him to say, okay, Ukraine, we understand why you did this, but don't go any further than what you just did?
They won't say that publicly, and the administration has been very, very hesitant to any way publicly constrain Ukraine. There's been some behind-the-scenes constraints in terms of what they can use American weapons for. There's no indication that this was done with the U.S. weapons systems, and whether or not that'd be seen as a violation of the agreements, who knows? Mm-hmm. It does show that the Ukrainians are willing to act on their own and poke the bear, so to speak. Mm-hmm. What I think is most interesting, and I think what we still have to always look at going forward for the United States' role in this, and as Ukraine is becoming more politically important certainly in the 2024 election, is how much the administration is willing to say what the end game is, right? Because there's a worldview in which this bridge must be blown up because Crimea is part of Ukraine. There's also a worldview which is probably a little more realistic, that at some point this war is going to come to an end. Russia's going to still hold Ukraine and hold Crimea and hold parts of eastern Ukraine. And everybody's going to have to be okay with that to end the bloodshed and to stop the potential of miscalculation and reciprocity multipliers, which we continue to see.
Leland, we literally just got a 2-minute warning, so I do want to talk to you on the other side of Kirby's talking points. But I want to ask you quickly before he comes out, do you expect him to hit on the grain agreement as well in response to the bridge?
Sure, he'll probably be asked about it and talk about this idea of how much grain can be exported through the Black Sea and whether Russia can use that as basically a way to twist the arms of not only Africa and African countries, but the United States and others. This all goes back to the United States continues to push and to pull and to cajole the Russians and to shame them. But so far, nothing the White House has done or said has really changed Vladimir Putin's actions. He's still prosecuting this war in Ukraine. He is still committing atrocities in every way, shape, and form. He shows no willingness, at least that we've seen, to negotiate. He still holds Crimea, and this is all despite everything that the United States has said. And this is always the challenge for John Kirby, is he must come out and defend a policy and state a policy that shames and names Russia, but never gives the end state of what the administration views as how this war will end, and when the United States' aid to Ukraine might come with more restrictions. And that's going to be the push. And I think you're seeing that playing out this weekend, certainly on the Republican side, that support for Ukraine is now becoming this very divisive political issue in a way that it wasn't a year or so ago, namely because of that question about the end state.
Particularly, Leland, as we both expected to play front and center in the upcoming election.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what was on display this weekend, both at the Turning Point USA conference and at the Iowa Faith and Freedom conversation, where Republican candidates are really now split, with some saying that they will continue to support Ukraine and that this is a fundamental tenet of American democracy to support countries who are under threat abroad. And then others who are saying, look, support for Ukraine and the tens or hundreds of billions of dollars is money that could be better spent here at home. And Vladimir Zelensky, if he's going to keep using American supplies and American money, he needs to listen to the United States and these Republican candidates saying that they would put some restrictions and ask for deliverables from Zelensky, namely in terms of negotiations and coming up with a peace deal, rather than just sort of allowing Zelensky to continue to prosecute the war as he sees fit.
Leland, when we talk about this, who is Putin really trying to punish? Ukraine or the world supporting them?
Well, Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine back because he views Ukraine as part of Mother Russia. He's laid that out for a long time. And this goes back to his idea of being a strongman. He rules by decree, and he has promised the Russian people that they are suffering, and they continue to suffer under sanctions, and were suffering before under some very difficult economic situations, in order to bring the motherland back together. So this is Vladimir Putin trying to continue to exercise his will. The problem with being a loser in this is that losers don't last very long as strongmen. There's a real discussion in the national security community about how to give, at least among some of the national security community. The Biden administration seems not to be having those yet. But how do you give Vladimir Putin an off-ramp where he is able to retain power and he feels himself that his power base in Russia is safe, and thus he is willing to end the war without being humiliated? Again, almost every time there's one of these briefings, John Kirby or whoever's giving it is pressed on that issue, but doesn't have an answer.
Here's Karine Jean-Pierre right now, Leland. We'll talk on the other side.
I'm not quite understanding this. It's okay. There might be issues if people start commenting on my outfit. Okay, so first I want to officially welcome Kelly O'Donnell as the new president of the White House Correspondents Association, and thank you to, she's not here, but thank you to Tamara Keith for her partnership over the last year. very few people understand just how much work is required by the WHCA and the White House to ensure press coverage and related travels as smoothly as possible. And we are looking forward to working closely with you, Kelly O, and in this next chapter. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited about it. So I have two things at the top, and welcome to anyone who traveled with us abroad. Welcome back. Hopefully you got some rest over the weekend. But the first thing I want to talk about, it's on a subject that's gotten increasing attention over the last few weeks, certainly the last couple of days. And I want to quote a Republican senator in 2022. So bear with me here. Quote, "Leaving our military in limbo is never the right thing to do," end quote. That same senator also said, quote, "Our military isn't a political pawn." The year before, this Republican senator declared, and I quote, "Our job as elected official is to make sure that those who have stepped up to defend our country have the resources that they need to do their job and to do it safely." Strangely, though, that person who said these things seems to have forgotten them, and that person, as you all know, because you've all covered this very closely, is Tommy Tuberville. So right now, Senator Tuberville is hijacking what has traditionally been a bipartisan process, the National Defense Authorization Act. He's also delaying the confirmation of hundreds of qualified and capable military nominees, depriving our armed forces of leadership it needs. The Pentagon is going without a Senate-confirmed Marine Corps commandant for the first time ever in over a century because of this attack on our national security. A cascading effect of delayed promotions threatens to brain drain from the military. And military families do not know where they will live, where spouses will work, where children will go to school. Senator Tuberville himself said in 2021, and I quote, of course, "Military spouses make sacrifices every day for their country. They are the backbones and support systems for our troops, often balancing this with family life, moving towns, and being separated from loved ones." Senator Tuberville from 2021 and 2022 should intervene with 2023 Senator Tuberville, because clearly there's a problem here. And Republican senators need to speak out on behalf of our national security and military families. That's something that you heard from President Biden at his press conference in Helsinki. So I'm just reiterating that. Republican senators need to speak up. Now, also, have one more thing that I want to share before I turn it over to the Admiral, because we don't get many opportunities to say what I'm about to share. And so I want to make sure that these words come out very clearly. And I'm sure she'll be very shocked that I'm saying this, which is we agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is not something that we say very often. Over the weekend, the Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, criticized Bidenomics as being in line with the FDR's creation of Social Security, Lyndon Johnson's creation of Medicare. She also bizarrely attacked Bidenomics because it's reducing poverty in rural areas. We agree with her all around on this. We are opposed to rural poverty, and the president is committed to protect Medicare and committed to protect Social Security, as you heard from him over and over again over the past several months. Now, to be fair, we are aware of her misgivings about Medicare and Social Security because she's a member of the Republican Study Committee, which recently, again, proposed cutting those very benefits. But this is the first time that we are aware of being attacked for trying to reduce rural poverty. Although we probably should have seen that coming, since Marjorie Taylor Greene is also trying to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, policies that are responsible for high-paying manufacturing jobs coming back to her own district. Now, President Biden looks forward to visiting her district, as you've heard him say many times before, to highlight those good-paying jobs and the differences that they are making in the lives of real people on the ground in Georgia. And finally, as I just mentioned, as somebody just talked about his wonderful suit today, The Admiral is here, John Kirby, to take a few questions on some foreign policy news of the day, including Russia's suspension of the Black Sea grain initiative, the president's call, as you all know, with the Prime Minister of Israel, and the president's and also Israel's president's visit tomorrow. And with that, Kirby, the floor is yours. Thanks,
Good afternoon, everybody. So I want to start today by addressing Russia's irresponsible and dangerous decision to suspend its participation in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which will exacerbate food scarcity and harm millions of vulnerable people around the world.
Admiral, I'm not sure the microphone works.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Same for KJP.
Yeah, we can
Sorry
hear
about that. Maybe we can.
I will contact someone.
Should I just yell? I can do that.
You're on deck. I get it.
Admirals can do that. Is that better? Sounds like it is. No?
No,
Yeah?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just give us a second. Want to make sure you're heard. Okay. Is it okay if we just start in the back? No?
Maybe I could hear him, but and same with you. It's just muted today.
Okay.
I'll try to project.
We'll do our best.
I've had my grandkids for the last 2.5 weeks, so projecting is something I'm good at right now. I want to start today by addressing Russia's irresponsible and dangerous decision to suspend its participation in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which will exacerbate food scarcity and harm millions of vulnerable people around the world. The Black Sea Grain Initiative has been critical to bringing down food prices, which have spiked as a result of Russia's brutal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. More than half of the 33 million metric tons of grain and foodstuffs that have been shipped through the initiative have gone to developing countries, including some of the most food insecure regions of the globe. These shipments have helped drive down and stabilize global prices, and every shipment under the initiative has contributed to reducing hardship in the world's poorest countries, since bringing grain to world markets lowers food prices for everybody. Russia's decision to resume its effective blockade of Ukrainian ports and prevent this grain from getting to markets will harm people all over the world. Russia will be fully and solely responsible for the consequences of this military act of aggression. Indeed, we are already seeing a spike in global wheat, corn, and soybean prices just today as a result of Russia's suspension. We urge the government of Russia to immediately reverse its decision. Meanwhile, the United States has and we will continue to work with other countries to enable both Russian and Ukrainian grain to reach the rest of the world, including by ensuring that our sanctions do not target, contrary to Russian propaganda, they do not target Russian food or fertilizer, and we will continue to support Ukraine's efforts to get that grain to markets that desperately need it, even if that's through other routes. A lot of work to be done here. This is a deeply regrettable and, as I said, a dangerous decision that we urge Mr. Putin to reverse. Now, just quickly, a readout on the president's discussion today with Prime Minister Netanyahu. They obviously talked about a broad range of global and regional issues of mutual concern. The president underscored his ironclad, unwavering commitment to Israel's security, and he condemned recent acts of terror against Israeli citizens. The two consulted on our close coordination to counter Iran, including through regular and ongoing joint military exercises. They noted that the U.S.-Israel partnership remains a cornerstone in preventing Iran from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon. The president stressed the need to take measures to maintain the viability of a two-state solution and to improve the security situation in the West Bank. To that end, he welcomed Israel's willingness to consider new steps to support Palestinian livelihoods and recognized promising steps by the Palestinian Authority, for their part, to reassert security control in Jenin and other areas of the West Bank. He expressed concern about continued settlement growth and called on all parties to refrain from further unilateral measures. The two leaders agreed to consult with regional partners with the aim of convening a meeting soon in the Aqaba-Sharm format as soon as possible. They also consulted on progress towards establishing a more integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Middle East, including through efforts to deepen and expand normalization with countries in the region and beyond. Finally, President Biden reiterated, in the context of the current debate in Israel about judicial reform, the need for the broadest possible consensus, and that shared democratic values have always been and must remain a hallmark of the U.S.-Israel relationship. That takes questions.
Thanks, John. First on the call with Netanyahu, the Israelis said that there was an invitation to meet in the United States. Is that meeting at the White House, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly asked for?
They have agreed that they will meet probably before the end of this year, and all the details of the wheres and the whens are still being worked out.
And then secondly, on the Black Sea grain deal, assuming Russia doesn't lift this effective blockade, what other options are there that the U.S. can facilitate to get that Ukraine grain out there? Is there additional resources that the U.S. can send to Ukraine, ship it out via rail?
Yeah.
Or is it really just at the mercy of Russia here?
Well, look, to some degree, Russia does have a huge amount of responsibility here. By allowing, or in the previous months, allowing ships to leave through the Black Sea along an approved route. But absent that, we're going to have to kind of go back to where we were before the grain deal was put in place last July. Now, it's been a year, where obviously the bulk of grain wasn't getting out, because the only other option you have for that is overland, by rail, by truck, overland. And of course, overland transport of anything in Ukraine right now is a pretty hazardous undertaking. And of course, you'd have to go through EU countries. They all would have to be okay with that. They have farmers and farms that they have to be concerned about for their own economies. So it's more cumbersome, less efficient, certainly not as an effective way of getting all that grain out of Ukraine. And that's why before the grain deal was put in place, food prices were going up. The developing world, the so-called global south, was suffering under food scarcity. So, I mean, I don't want to stand here and promise you that we'll be able to fix everything as a result of this decision by Russia. We'll do the best we can. We'll continue to work with allies and partners to find new ways to get grain out. But there's no possible way, just mathematically, we're going to get as much grain out now as we were going to be able to get out through the grain deal if it had been extended.
Thank you.
Hello.
That, of course, was John Kirby speaking to the White House press corps about the grain deal, the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which has come to an end because it was not renewed by Vladimir Putin. He's calling it that ending that deeply regrettable because there are food insecure areas that need that grain supply, and calling it both dangerous and irresponsible. We're going to bring back a host of On Balance, Leland Vittert. Leland, we heard Kirby talk about how he's disappointed, but there's only so much they can do because that route had been approved by the EU. What do you think happens now, and were you pleased with some of the things you heard him say?
There really wasn't a lot that was said that Vladimir Putin was going to pay attention to. You didn't hear anything from John Kirby that Vladimir Putin would go, oh, well, now I must rethink this because the spokesperson for the National Security Council finds this deeply regrettable. And that's been the problem in so much of this for the White House about Ukraine is that you can only say so much to Vladimir Putin before you're actually forced to put some kind of teeth behind it. And when you don't, you end up with press conferences like this. Saying things are regrettable only matters if there's an or else. I thought was really interesting, and John Kirby does not normally get into domestic political affairs, but he said in there that we've already seen world food prices go up. It almost reminded me of Putin's price hike, that this was the White House trying to telegraph, hey, for whatever inflation issues still exist, whatever food cost issues still exist. We know that while inflation's down, the cost of food and food items in the grocery store still remains high and continues to go up. This may be a little bit of a telegraph of trying to bring back the Putin price hike talking point once again, which, for whatever you think of it, was fairly effective for the Biden administration going into the 2022 midterms in terms of inoculating Democrats from people being pretty angry over what was happening with the economy, Nick.
Leland, I know you'll have a full wrap-up of all of this tonight on your own show. So, Leland, thanks again for taking time out to join me this afternoon.
We'll see you soon. And
as a reminder, you can watch Leland's show On Balance every weekday right here at 7 Eastern, only on NewsNation, news for all America. Well, coming up, new surveillance footage shows the Gilgo Beach murder suspect moments before his arrest in the deaths of 3 of the victims. What new searches are revealing about who could be responsible for the other killings. And right after the break, another nightmare weekend at America's airports, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. Is it a fluke or another sign of a troubling trend? Those questions and more answered when we come back.
Mike Pence, live one-on-one on Elizabeth Vargas Reports tomorrow.
Meet the team behind the team. The coach, the manager, and the snack dad, all using Chase to keep up with their finances. The coach helps save goals here because she saved for soccer camp there. And check this out. The manager deposited a check. Magic. And the snack dad, he's getting paid back. Orange slices. Because this team all has Chase. Smart bankers, convenient tools, one bank with the power of both. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Drive Time has a big announcement. An even easier way to buy a car. You make the deal yourself.
I make the deal myself.
It lets you customize the real down payment and monthly payment of the car you want to buy.
It's the Drive Time Real Deal Maker.
Get the real deal at drivetime.com.
If you have Graves' disease, your eye symptoms could mean something more. That gritty feeling can't be brushed away. Even a little blurry vision can distort things, and something serious may be behind those itchy eyes. Up to 50% of people with Graves could develop a different condition called thyroid eye disease, which should be treated by a different doctor. See an expert. Find a TED eye specialist at isitted.com.
Pop quiz. Did you know you can lose weight with a plan that fits your budget and your goals? Introducing Quick 9 from Nutrisystem. Lose up to 9 pounds your first 2 weeks. You get delicious frozen meals delivered right to your door with convenient shipments at an affordable price and fast weight loss.
I'm saving money and I'm losing weight.
It's flexible, it's affordable, and it works. Get off to a fast start with Quick 9. Call or go online right now to get over 50% off plus free extras.
How do you commit the perfect murder?
There's only one way to find out.
There's something not right here.
How's an entire family simply vanish?
We need to know what happened.
There's someone else pulling the strings here.
I don't know who you're talking about!
My lips are sealed. That is interesting.
Now, come on!
Only on BritBox. Watch with a free trial.
Moving forward with node-positive breast cancer is overwhelming, but I never just found my way. I made it and did all I could to prevent recurrence.
Verzenio reduces the risk of recurrence of HR-positive, HER2-negative, node-positive early breast cancer with a high chance of returning, as determined by your doctor when added to hormone therapy. Hormone therapy works outside the cell, while Verzenio works inside to help stop the growth of cancer cells. Diarrhea is common, may be severe, or cause dehydration or infection. At the first sign, call your doctor, start an antidiarrheal, and drink fluids. Before taking Verzenio, tell your doctor about any fever, chills, or other signs of infection. Verzenio may cause low white blood cell counts, which may cause serious infection that can lead to death. Life-threatening lung inflammation can occur. Tell your doctor about any new or worsening trouble breathing, cough, or chest pain. Serious liver problems can happen. Symptoms include fatigue, appetite loss, stomach pain, and bleeding or bruising. Blood clots that can lead to death have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have pain or swelling in your arms or legs, shortness of breath, chest pain, and rapid breathing or heart rate, or if you are nursing, pregnant, or plan to be.
I'm making my own way forward.
Ask your doctor about everyday Verzenio.
Why did I choose Safeway? I love my electric car. So when my windshield got cracked, I trusted the experts at Safelight. With their state-of-the-art technology, they replaced the windshield, recalibrated the car's camera, and then recycled my old glass. I found out Safelight recycles over 3 million windshields a year. Great job, thank you. Replace, recalibrate, recycle. I count on Safelight.
Safelight Repair, Safelight Replace.
Your brain is an amazing thing. But as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Welcome back to NewsNation Now. Right now, Gold Star families are meeting with a number of Republican members, including House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. They're demanding answers after 13 service members were killed during the withdrawal of U.S. troops in Afghanistan back in 2021. This comes after a scathing report released 2 weeks ago criticizing both the Trump and Biden administrations for their handling of the evacuation. NewsNation's Joe Khalil joins us live from Capitol Hill. Joe, these families are in a unique position because they know the pain of having lost a service member firsthand. What are they hoping to get out of this meeting?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the worst kind of pain, Nick. So I talked to one of these family members just before they went into some meetings with lawmakers. It was a very brief interaction because we're scheduled to speak longer with them later. But in just that short amount of time, I asked, what do you hope to get out of these meetings? And they gave me one word, and it was simply accountability. Clearly, these families feel like they have not had that. They've not had a full measure of accountability in the 2 years nearly since their loved ones were killed in Afghanistan during that chaotic pullout when the United States forces were withdrawing. And so what they want now is to parse through all of the decisions that were made, the strategic moves that were made that put their loved ones in that position, and try to make sure that moving forward now, other families aren't put in the same situation and dilemma they are now in, which is having lost a family member to something like that horrific, horrible terrorist attack, that suicide bomb back in 2021. Now, they're meeting with some really high-level members of Congress. They met with the top Republican, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael McCaul, among others. And as you mentioned, they just wrapped up a meeting moments ago with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And before that meeting, the speaker actually got on the microphone, took questions from some reporters, and was asked about exactly the question you posed to me, Nick, which is, what do these families want? Here's what the speaker said.
I want these families to know that their loved ones will never be forgotten, that their sacrifices that they made, that this country is very grateful.
And in just a little while, we're going to be speaking with Mark Schmitz. His son, Jared, Lance Corporal, was also killed in that attack. He has actually set up a foundation now called Freedom 13, honoring those 13 service members who were killed. And he's trying to do some advocacy work to make sure that families who lose loved ones overseas in war, that they have a place in every single state within the United States to grieve and to cope and to come try to meet with other service members who've been through the same thing. So we're going to talk to him about that. And I imagine we're going to get some interesting interactions with him on that subject that you all can see later on tonight on News Nation.
Joe, I don't believe there's anyone who believes that it should be a partisan issue to want accountability for the men and women who serve this country. Joe Khalil, thank you so much, reporting to us from the nation's capital. News Nation following the lingering trouble in the skies as more than 10,000 flights were delayed and out of the U.S. on Sunday. Now, more than 1,700 flights were canceled. Airports on the East Coast took the brunt of the issues as heavy rains and flash floods slammed most cities across the Northeast. Newark and LaGuardia are forced to cancel nearly 30% of all departures, whereas JFK and Boston International Airport forced to cancel 20%. And those issues have continued into today. Joining me now is David Slotnick, senior aviation reporter with The Points Guy. You know, earlier this week, I had an opportunity to speak with Pete Buttigieg. He just went on a victory lap talking about how well the airlines did for the 4th of July. What went wrong this weekend?
You know, it really just comes down to weather a lot of the time. The weather this weekend was really a pretty exceptional event. It was severe in the Northeast. And, you know, a lot of flights pass through the Northeast. So when one gets delayed, then every other flight that's operated by that aircraft or scheduled to be is going to have a similar cancellation or delay. So, you know, really when this happens, it can have ripple effects just across the whole country.
David, it just seems like so many flights, and most of us are sitting back thinking, now, wait a minute, this is the Northeast. They've got to be used to a little bit of rain, David.
Well, I mean, first of all, this weekend wasn't just a little bit of rain. There was pretty severe flooding. As you mentioned, there was flash flooding really across the Northeast. There were reports of tornadoes in some areas. This was not just your normal 20-minute thunderstorm that you really see in the summer a lot. This was actually pretty severe. At the same time, there are still ongoing systemic problems that we're seeing in the air travel industry. Air traffic controllers, there's still a shortage of them, particularly in the Northeast, in the New York area. And that's continuing to have an impact on really how airlines can manage these delays. Just on top of that, you know, everybody's traveling. This is just absolutely over the top demand. The airlines are doing their best to try and meet that while at the same time keeping some reliability. So they're trying to ride that line. And it's a difficult one to manage. You know, it's the kind of thing that would work well if maybe the weather held up or if there were just sort of your normal run-of-the-mill storms here and there. But when things get severe, it can really just cascade into a pretty messy situation.
So this was an exceptional circumstance. David, thank you for pulling me back on that, saying, Nick, it was more than just a little rain, because we did talk about the historic flooding that happened in parts of the Northeast. David, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Just ahead, the manhunt for an escaped prisoner that lasted for more than a week coming to a head over the weekend. The unlikely hero who helped track down the 34-year-old fugitive. Plus, the very latest from Long Island, where investigators are searching the home of the Gilgo murder suspect. What authorities have found so far. You're watching NewsNation Now.
Who right now? Why? Why is it important we know the truth?
Leland, that is an excellent question.
That's a good question.
Great question.
We want people to think one of three things when they watch the show. I didn't know that, I hadn't thought of that, or that's exactly what I was thinking.
When you find your reason to go on, let it pull you past the doubt, past the pain, and past your limits. No matter what, we go on. BioFreeze.
Moderate to severe eczema still disrupts my skin. Despite treatment, it disrupts my skin with itch. It disrupts my skin with rash. But now, I can disrupt eczema with Rinvoq. Rinvoq is not a steroid, topical, or injection. It's one pill once a day. Many taking Rinvoq saw clear or almost clear skin, while some saw up to 100% clear skin. And they felt dramatic and fast itch relief, some as early as 2 days. That's Rinvoq Relief.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers, including lymphoma and skin cancer. Death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occurred. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Disrupt the itch and rash of eczema. Talk to your doctor about Rinvoq.
Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
An unthinkable genocide took the lives of 6 million Jews, and thousands of Jewish survivors are still suffering in poverty today.
God calls on people who believe in him to act on his word. Comfort my people.
These elderly Jews are weak and they're sick. They're living on $2 a day, which is impossible.
They don't have enough money to buy food. It is a miserable situation, and they have nowhere else to turn but to us for help.
This now is how God's children are living. Take this time to send a survival food box to these forgotten Jews.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews urgently need your gift of $25 now to help provide one survival food box with all of the essentials they critically need for their diet for 1 month.
No vitamins and no protein, so my legs and hands are very weak. Let's make sure that we bring them just a little bit of hope by bringing them a little bit of food.
Become a part of the fellowship today by reaching out to bless these precious people of God. For just $25, you can help supply the essential foods they desperately need for 1 month. That's less than $1 a day.
This trusted ministry has given Christians like me a way to tangibly bless Jewish people who are in need throughout the world.
God tells us to take care of them, to feed the hungry. And I pray Holocaust survivors will be given the basic needs that they so desperately pray for to survive.
Subway slicing their turkey fresh, like on the Titan Turkey. Pile high with double the cheese and more meat.
I prefer freshly sliced turkey. It's my favorite mouthguard flavor.
Now available at Subway.
The sub, not the mouthguard.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services by attorney Andrew Van Arsdale. Attention Camp Lejeune toxic water survivors. There are many options when it comes to legal representation, but not all law firms are created equal. AVA Law Group has been recognized by Time Magazine, CNN, and Fox News for its work in helping victims of Camp Lejeune toxic water. If you were exposed to toxic water at Camp Lejeune and suffered an injury, call AVA Law Group today and join the thousands of clients we are currently representing in our direct negotiations with the government. We'll make sure your VA benefits aren't put at risk, and if we don't recover money on your behalf, there is no fee. You and your family have made an incredible sacrifice through your service to this country. Let us repay you through our commitment to the Camp Lejeune Justice Act. Call AVA Law Group today.
Call 1-800-448-0133. 1-800-448-0133.
Welcome back to News Nation Prime. I'm Nick Smith. Police are conducting new property searches connected to suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann. This after announcing that major break in the case on Friday. New security cam video shows Heuermann walking down the street moments before police swooped in and arrested the Long Island architect in connection to the long unsolved string of killings. He was charged Friday with murder in the deaths of 3 of the 11 victims, and Heuermann is the prime suspect in the death of a 4th victim. We're expecting another update from police in less than 30 minutes. We'll bring you that here on News Nation when it happens. But first, correspondent Alex Capriello is live in Long Island. Alex, police have been conducting searches since the weekend. I have to believe this is disconcerting for the neighbors in that area.
Yeah, this has been a very busy scene over the past few days. You can see the authorities right here behind me. They're still searching this house. We have learned that they have uncovered and confiscated some alarming items. We're talking about nearly 100 guns from inside that house. Also a life-size doll that was held within a glass case. We spoke to some criminal justice experts about that. They say it could indicate a fetish. We do know that many of the victims found on Gilgo Beach were sex workers. At this moment right now, we want to show you this video. It's only a few miles from here. A separate search warrant being executed at a storage facility belonging to the accused murder. At that scene, I saw the Suffolk County medical examiner. We saw crime lab technicians, police, and state troopers. I asked the authorities how long they plan to be out there today. They said they should be wrapping it up shortly, around 3 to 4 p.m. Heuermann's charged with the deaths of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. He's also the prime suspect in the death of Maureen Brainard Barnes. Together, those 4 are known as the Gilgo 4. News Nation also acquiring this new video of the very moment Heuermann was swarmed by agents last week and brought into custody just outside his architecture firm in Manhattan. Heuermann seemingly oblivious to the massive investigation that was swirling around him since last year when police linked his pickup truck to those very crimes. Police say they have solid evidence linking Heuermann to the decade-long cold case. They say he used burner phones to look up the latest in the Gilgo Beach murders and to taunt the victims' families from afar. They also say Heuermann had child pornography on his computers, and his wife hair was also found on 3 of those victims. Finally, pizza crust from a box was used to match his DNA to the murders. Now, to your point, Nick, I did speak to neighbors out here. They said that Heuermann really seemed like just a normal guy. He kept a really low profile. He was quiet and kept to himself. And they believe that's the reason why he was able to evade police for so long. Take a listen.
If it's true what this man is accused of doing, how do you think he evaded police for more than a decade?
Well, just look at the house. You know, he didn't draw attention to himself. You know, he tried to live somewhat of a normal, if you want to call it, life for a sociopath. You know, you don't know. You know, it's he just did what he did. But I'm glad that they were smarter than him and they finally caught him.
And you can really tell neighbors around here are very disturbed about the allegations of someone that lives so close by. In fact, just right around me right now, there's lots of people that have stopped here to see the crime scene, to see this police activity, and to see the news reporters that are out here doing their coverage. We are told that there is an upcoming press briefing that is happening later this afternoon. We're working to confirm that right now. But if that does happen, we plan on taking it live. And I'll be live as well to bring you the latest from that.
And Alex, of course, we'll touch base with you to see what is gleaned from listening to officials there on the ground. Alex Capriello live for us this afternoon in Long Island, New York. Alex, thank you. I want to welcome in Mary Murphy, investigative reporter with our New York City affiliate. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here. I want to jump right in and ask you, talk to us about the searches of Heuermann's home, car, and other property, and if authorities have found anything substantial.
Well, I can tell you, Nick, that we spoke to the Suffolk County District Attorney this morning and the Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison. Both told us they have found massive amounts of new evidence. Of course, it has to be tested. They didn't get specific, but they did acknowledge that they went to that storage unit in another part of Long Island in Amityville, and they're looking for potential trophies that this alleged killer might have kept belonging to his victims. And the fact that the medical examiner was there from Suffolk County, that's very telling, because usually an ME is on site if they think that there may be human remains. So part of the search in the storage lockers involved a search for potential human remains.
And Mary, earlier over the weekend, we saw bags of things being brought out, including, in some instances, weapons. We have new video of Huerman actually being swarmed by law enforcement while walking down a sidewalk. Talk about all the things we know now that police were doing up to this arrest.
Well, they followed Huerman for more than a year as soon as they identified him as a prime suspect in this case. And I know you're waiting for the press conference to start in just about a half hour. We understand that will involve the New York State Police. And it was an investigator from the state police working on the task force who identified that Chevy Avalanche as belonging to Rex Huerman. And that was crucial. That knocked down so many walls in the case. Once he was isolated as a potential suspect, then they started looking at his cell phones. And it turned out that there were pings in the area near where he lived from a victim's phone and also from burner phones that allegedly were used by him to contact the different sex workers. The pings came from where he lived, but also near where he worked. And that was near 35th Street and 5th Avenue in Manhattan. And that's where he was arrested on Thursday night.
Mary, you've been doing this long enough. Why do you think they waited to arrest him in Manhattan and not in the rural part of Massapequa where he lives?
I really can't answer that question. I can tell you that they were hoping to arrest him this week. They kind of went in a little earlier than expected. And I think they were concerned about potential leaks from the grand jury. A grand jury on Long Island had been hearing evidence in this case for a long time. They were very well aware that the suspect was searching the internet to see if there were any new clues in the investigation of him. So they felt they had to get him last week, not wait until this week. And they were also concerned about potential new victims because he was allegedly still dealing with sex workers and going to massage parlors.
And that was my next question for you, Mary, before I let you go. There are new questions about if there are other victims out there or if Huerman could be connected to other Gilgo victims. Do we have any information from police on what they're doing to figure that part out?
Well, we asked the commissioner and the DA about that this morning. There are at least 6 other victims or remains that were found on Ocean Parkway in Gilgo Beach and Oak Beach, and some of them were dismembered. The Gilgo 4, their bodies were intact. So the MO of some of the other victims involved dismemberment. So did he get involved with that kind of killing? Or is there another killer out there? That's the key question right now.
Mary, I've got to wrap this up, but I have to ask you, on a personal and professional level, you've been covering this case for years. You've had an opportunity to meet some of these family members. What do you think this arrest means for these families of some of these victims?
I know they're enormously grateful and relieved, but a lot of the families are very upset. They felt let down. They felt the media maybe exploited them a little bit. Some of them had contacted me a few years ago. They were upset because the memorials, the crosses on Ocean Parkway had been removed after a number of years when the roadway was widened. And so they called me and they said, we really feel this is wrong. There should be benches there. There should be plaques there. And now one family in particular is upset because the indictment was not secured in the case involving Maureen Brainerd Barnes. But there is more testing being done, and I believe investigators are confident that they will get an indictment in that case eventually.
Mary, I have reason to believe that we're only at the beginning of what may be a rather drawn-out process. Mary Murphy, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
A days-long manhunt for an escaped prisoner in Pennsylvania coming to a close over the weekend. Michael Burham, who broke out of jail on July 7th, is now back in custody and facing a new charge stemming from his escape. His captor thanks in part to his chocolate lab named Tucker. That's Tucker right there. Tucker alerted his owners that something was afoot in the woods behind their property. Correspondent Dre Clark is live in Erie, Pennsylvania. Dre, an unlikely hero stepping in to bring this 9-day episode to an end.
Yeah, 200 people on the ground, drones and helicopters in the air, and in the end, it was a dog who actually ended up being the reason why Nichole Berlie is now here at his new temporary home, which is the Erie County Prison. He's now been charged with a federal charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. He'll be arraigned on that charge sometime this week, and almost surely other charges will follow. Of course, his 9-day run from the law coming to an end on Saturday here. This is Berli's official booking photo here at the Erie County Prison. Federal authorities requesting Berlie be held here until it's determined where he will go next. We're told Berlie is considered a high-risk inmate, so he's limited in his movements, and he's under constant monitoring. He's only allowed to come out for showers or to have any medical issues addressed should he have any. I spoke with the warden a little earlier. He was able to give us a little more insight into how they're handling their new high-profile inmate.
Obviously, he's high risk and a max inmate. We have different classification pods. Right now, he is in restricted housing, and that's where he's going to stay until we finish our review and evaluations to decide where he is housed and what he's going to be allowed to do. He doesn't say much right now, and I'm sure his mind's running 150 miles an hour, but our special review committee, consisting of a few of my staff, had went down there today and discussed some things with him. We had the prison psychologist talking to him, and we're going to go from there.
And as we noted a moment ago, it was this chocolate lab named Tucker that helped Berlie get back into custody. Saturday afternoon, Tucker kept barking unusually long behind his owner's Warren County, Pennsylvania home. Ronald Eklund says he walked to find out what exactly was going on, and that's when he came face-to-face with Berlie. Eklund says he and his wife called 911 after quickly exchanging a few words with Berlie.
He had a backpack he was putting on, you know, and that's when I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Camping." He's putting on his backpack, and he just started walking away, and I didn't look back at that point.
And within minutes, teams surrounded the area, search teams that is, around the couple's home. And after a 2-hour search, Berlie was captured. His capture again ending a 9-day-long manhunt after he escaped from the Warren County jail using tied-up bed sheets. More than 200 men from 15 different law enforcement agencies, including women, searched through the rural area, convinced Berlie hadn't really traveled too far. Investigators say Berlie made the mistake of coming out of the woods and showing his face. Now, police say when they arrested Berlie, he was still wearing his jail-issued pants, only inside out. He was wet, he was dirty, and he appeared to be worn out and tired. However, police say during their interview with Berlie, he kind of bragged about being able to get away with from them for 9 days. Now, the manhunt is ending, but the criminal investigation is just getting started. Investigators now trying to figure out if he had any help coming from inside the jail. Nick?
And at one point, the officials even saying he looked almost relieved that this was over. Dre Clark reporting to us live this evening from Erie, Pennsylvania. Dre, thank you so much. Well, coming up, a perfect storm of flooding, extreme heat, and wildfires are wreaking havoc on communities nationwide. What you need to know as that severe weather moves in. You're watching NewsNation Now on NewsNation.
One legendary icon deserves another. Get in! The future of Chevy electric SUVs has arrived. See Barbie, only in theaters July 21st. And experience the all-new Chevy Blazer EV SS.
An important message for Americans age 50 to 85.
Hey, honey. Looks like my to-do list grew. Paint the bathroom, give Baxter a bath, get life insurance. Have a few minutes. I could do that now.
Oh, that fast.
Remember that Colonial Penn ad? I called and I got information. They sent the simple form I need to apply. All I do is fill it out and send it back.
Well, that sounds too easy.
Give a little information, check a few boxes, sign my name. Done.
They don't ask about your health?
No health questions.
Physical exam?
Don't need one. It's Colonial Penn Guaranteed Acceptance Whole Life Insurance.
The name says it all. If you're between the ages of 50 and 85, your acceptance is guaranteed in most states, even if you're not in the best health. That's one reason this plan is so popular. The price is another. Options start at $9.95 a month, 35 cents a day. Once insured, your rate will never increase. A lifetime rate lock guarantees it. And to make budgeting easier, you decide how and when to pay. You have your choice of convenient payment options, and you can pick your own premium due date. Keep in mind, this is lifetime protection. As long as you pay your premiums, it's yours to keep. Call for more information and the simple form you need to apply today. There's no obligation, and you'll receive a free beneficiary planner just for calling.
Forgetting something.
Call 1-800-365-4600 for your free information and your free beneficiary planner. That's 1-800-365-4600. There's no obligation. 1-800-365-4600. Call now.
We will no longer be prisoners to you, Winter. We shall fly south to where the courts are eternally bright, and we will do so with Consumer Cellular. The same coverage for up to half the cost. When freedom calls, we're here to answer.
The FBI calls it house stealing, the latest scam where a cyber thief transfers the title of your home out of your name and steals your hard-earned equity.
It's roughly 60 to 90 days for that person to even figure out that they're the victim of this crime. You start getting foreclosure notices, and you realize you've got 4 mortgages on your house that you didn't even know existed.
Unfortunately, it's on you to protect yourself. You might already be a victim. Check your title status now at HomeTitleLock.com.
Welcome back to NewsNation Now. At least 5 people have been killed in flash floods in southeastern Pennsylvania. 2 children remain missing after raging floodwaters swept through over the weekend. And now a massive search is underway for that 9-month-old boy and his 2-year-old sister in suburban Philadelphia. In California, firefighters are battling a raging wildfire in scorching hot conditions. The Rabbit Fire, as it's been dubbed, has burned more than 7,600 acres in Riverside County and is now 25% contained. All new in our next hour, a majority of Americans say they don't support President Biden or former President Trump running for re-election. After the break, we'll talk about that. The growing third-party movement looking to offer an alternative to voters.
GOP presidential candidate Chris Christie.
Our job is to get things done for the American people, and not small things, consequential things. And that's the kind of presidency I want to have.
Governor Christie, I appreciate you answering